Hi, and welcome back to this Monday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk, the American Family Radio Talk Network. Honored to welcome to our Decision Maker line, coming to us live from our remote studio in Nashville, Tennessee at the National Religious Broadcasters Association is Carol Tobias. Carol is the president of the National Right to Life Committee. Carol, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be on.
Well, great to have you with us, and thank you for dropping by our studio there at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville. Wanted to chat with you for a few moments. I think most people are familiar with the National Right to Life Committee, but for people that may not have heard about what you do, tell us briefly about the National Right to Life Committee and what issues you work on.
National Right to Life is the largest and oldest single-issue pro-life organization in the country. We started in 1968. We have an affiliate in each of the 50 states with 3,000 chapters around the country. Now, the people in those chapters work in their local communities to educate and to do what they can to bring people to a pro-life point of view. National Right to Life works in education, legislation. We work with Congress as well as our state affiliates to pass legislation in the state legislatures. And then we also work to elect pro-life candidates who will vote for the bills that have been introduced.
Carol,
so we have.
Go ahead.
So we have a lot of different areas that we're out there working in, and we're just happy to be part of this great debate in our country.
One of the things I say at the end of this program every day, Carol, is that we are fighting a winnable war, and I illustrate that in different ways over the course of the program. Looking at events or incidents that indicate that we are making progress in the culture war. And I believe we are making significant progress in the battle for the sanctity of human life. We have a long way to go, but we are making progress. And one of the illustrations of that is an issue that National Right to Life has been working on, and that has to do with pain-capable unborn child protection acts in various state legislatures. Explain what that is. The Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, what's that about? And then what kind of progress have we seen in state level?
We know that at about 20 weeks gestation, the unborn child can feel pain. So when an abortion is performed, the child is feeling the effect either of the saline abortion that is burning, scalding the skin, or the D&E abortion where the arms and legs are pulled off of, from the torso. So we have had 8 states now that have passed this Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, saying that once the child can feel pain, abortion is no longer allowed in that state. We've got a couple more states that are working on it, so we hope to have a few more by the end of the year.
It's interesting, Carol. I've read what's gone on in Arkansas, and Arkansas just passed a bill that likewise would prohibit abortions after the 20th week based on the capacity of the unborn child to feel pain. And a number of lawmakers said, well, look, there's no scientific evidence, or a number of the articles I read in the mainstream media said, look, there's no scientific evidence to support that a child can feel pain. But as a matter of fact, there is, and so pro-lifers are going to hear this. Look, there's no evidence for this, but very clearly there is good, solid medical evidence that an unborn child at 20 weeks and after can indeed feel pain. This is based on solid science.
It is based on science, and it's actually worse than that. If we feel some kind of pain or if something is hurting our body, we have pain receptors that will immediately kick in to try to deaden that pain. Those receptors have not been developed in the unborn child, so that child can feel the pain from the abortion, but the receptors that will try to numb that pain are not there yet. But absolutely, doctors, scientists, neurologists are all very clear, not all, but too many of them are very clear that the unborn child by 20 weeks gestation can feel pain.
Now, one of the things that's most encouraging to me, Carol, about what happened down in Arkansas, and again, I don't know whether National Right to Life was involved in that particular legislation or not, but the fact that it passed the legislature, it was sent to a Democratic governor, Mark Pryor, I think is his name, and he vetoed that bill. It was sent back to the legislature, and they overrode his veto and then passed another bill that would limit abortions after the age of 12 weeks when a heartbeat could be detected on a fetal monitor. So to me, the fact that they were willing to override a gubernatorial veto to protect the sanctity of life is a pretty significant thing.
It really is. The governor there is actually Mike Beebe.
That's right, Mike
and
Beebe.
He did veto the bills, and the legislature is just very firm that they want to protect unborn children. Now, unfortunately, the Supreme Court is not letting the state legislatures do as much as some of them would, but they are willing to do what we can and maybe even push the envelope a little bit.
Now, Carol, one of the things, we read stories all the time about polling data that indicate that America is becoming more pro-choice or more pro-abortion or whatever, but my suspicion is there's a considerable amount of distortion in some of this polling data, and if you look at them more carefully, or if you look at how polling questions are worded, or you look at the results of polls where a more honest or revealing question is asked, the things are actually much better in terms of the pro-life sentiment of the American people. Can you comment on that?
The American people are willing to limit abortion to only a few rare circumstances. Generally, they do think abortion should not be allowed as it is practiced in this country for any reason for all 9 months of pregnancy. And polls have been consistent in showing that most Americans would take a pro-life position. The anomaly that we saw was right after the election and maybe in early January, where it looked like some of the numbers had changed a bit. But I think that's because the American public had been subjected to a year-long campaign by President Obama, his campaign, by the media, the so-called war on women, Planned Parenthood with their millions of dollars, all talking about some very rare cases. So I think that did impact the American public. So if there were a few polls that were out of step with what we have seen mostly over the last decade.
But you talked, Carol, about the fact that overwhelming majorities in America are in favor of some what they would call common sense restrictions on abortion. They understand there need to be some common sense limitations here on what's done because this is a gruesome procedure. Everybody sort of has an understanding of that. And so I don't know what the numbers are, but they're very, very high. I think I saw one polling data that indicated over 80% of the American people support some sort of restrictions at some point on the practice of abortion. Very few Americans are in favor of abortion without any sort of restrictions whatsoever. And yet we have a president who does support unlimited access to abortion, unrestricted abortions, no limitations. He even supported virtually what amounts to infanticide when he was in the Illinois State Senate. And so it seems to me, Carol, and I'll let you comment on this as we're wrapping up our conversation, but it seems to me that what liberals want to do in America is tag the right to life folks as the extremists. We're the ones that are out of touch. But in reality, it turns out that the president and those that are in favor of no restrictions on abortions, it seems to me, and this is what I'd like you to comment on, it seems to me that they are really the extremists. They are the ones that are out of touch with the sentiments and the moral conscience of the American people.
We have a president who not only supports abortion, he is a pro-abortion ideologue. He supports absolutely no limits on abortion for all 9 months of pregnancy. During the campaign, a reporter asked some of his top campaign officials, is there any time during the pregnancy that President Obama would not think abortion should be allowed? Is there any reason that the president would think an abortion should not be allowed? And they all said, well, we'll get back to you on that. They never did, because we have a president who really thinks abortion should be legal for all 9 months, and he wants our taxpayer dollars to pay for it. He's not just supporting these positions, he is advocating them in every way. That position is representing less than 20% of all Americans, because most Americans would think abortion has gone too far and there should be some very serious limits placed on it.
One last thing, you look at the Obamacare, and there have been a lot of court cases now, 16, I think, total, dealing with the mandate in Obamacare that every employer must provide at his own expense, whether it's routed through a third party or not, it's still coming out of the pocket of the employer, must provide prescriptions to his employees that can and do induce abortions. This is a problem for a lot of Christian businessmen. And this has been now adjudicated 16 times in different courts around the country. And the courts right now is 12-4 that this represents a violation of the First Amendment and its protection for the free exercise of religion. So right now it even seems like the courts, which typically have been pretty activist on the issue of abortion, even the courts are coming down against the president's radical, extremist, out-of-touch position on this issue?
Well, thank goodness we still have some judges who understand the First Amendment and the right to free speech and the right to practice your religion as you see fit. And I would just suggest to all of your audience that they be praying for members of the judicial system, our judges, that as they get these cases, that they are making the right decisions.
Carol, as we're wrapping up, give us some information about where people can get more information about the National Right to Life Committee if they'd like to.
Our website, probably the easiest way to contact us or to get information, and that is NRLC, for National Right to Life Committee.org. And we've got a lot of information on that website about legislation, some educational fact sheets that can be downloaded. We encourage people to visit.
NRLC.org. Our guest has been Carol Tobias, who is the president of the National Right to Life Committee. That's a national federation. They have chapters in all 50 states and more than 3,000 local chapters doing God's work on protecting the sanctity of human life. Carol, thank you so much for taking time to be with us, and God bless you and the work of National Right to Life Committee.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that very much.
Carol Tobias with the National Right to Life Committee, and they are doing yeoman's work in the area of protecting the sanctity of human life and have done so for years. Now, want to take your phone calls in the last segment. We'll try to wedge in some sound bites if we can. I got a great roster today, and we haven't been able to get to any of them yet, and we'll see if we can squeeze some of those in over the next segment. 888-589-8840 is the number if you'd like to weigh in the last segment of the program on this Monday. Focal point at AFR Talk. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. So give us a call. We'll bring you on. Here's a little notice. We're going to break. In the country of France, I mean, they are hoity-toity about cuisine in the country of France. And now for the first time in the history of France, fast food is surpassing restaurant dining in France. More people buying hamburgers, pizzas, and hot dogs than sitting down at hoity-toity French restaurants. McDonald's, in particular, dominating the fast food market in France. Back in 2.